This is KC1. Which expression represents 5 times the sum of a number and 2? I begin this problem by taking a look at the keywords like times, which represents multiplication, and sum, which represents addition. Right away, I can cross off option C and D. They only have one operation, not both. I look at expression A and B and decide which one looks the same as the question being asked. Now, letter A, when I read this out loud, we have 5 times n plus 2. Letter B, it's 5 times n plus 2. So that sounds the most like 5 times the sum of a number and 2. So let's go with letter B. Number 2, we have to combine like terms. In order to combine like terms, we need to find terms that have the same variables. They don't have to have the same coefficients as long as the variables are the same. Our first term is 8x. The only other term I see with an x is this minus 2x. So I'm going to combine them together. 8x minus 2x is 6x. The only 6x's I see are in letter A and letter D, which means B and C are already not our options. I'm going to continue to the next term. The next term is minus 6. That doesn't have any variables. I look at my expression and I see a plus 8, which also has no variables. Minus 6 plus 8 gives us a positive 2, and the only option that has that is letter D, so that's our answer. What is the equivalent form of this expression? Now, I'd like to remind you that when you see a minus in front of parentheses, it implies a negative 1. When we have a number or variable in front of a set of parentheses, we distribute it. So let's do that. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times a minus 2y gives us a plus 2y. Letter A is our answer. A new curved TV screen costs $5,908. A family makes a down payment of $826 and pays the balance off in 24 equal monthly payments. Let's find that monthly payment. Now, the first thing I see here is that the family made a down payment. That means at the store, they paid a total of $826. So they had that on them when they were there, which means they have $5,082 left to pay off. They decide to pay that balance off in 24 equal payments, meaning we're going to take 5,082 and divide it by 24. Your calculator should give you the answer of B. Okay, the last problem on this page is an equation. In order to solve for x, we need to get x on one side and the constants on the other. I'm going to begin by subtracting 6x from both sides so that the x's are on one side. Now, you could have moved the 8x over. It doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer as I do. Next, I'm going to move the 3 to the other side because I want to have constants on one side and variables on the other. And we get to finish by dividing. We get that x equals 5. Let's move on to page 2. Just going to zoom in a bit so it's easier to write and read my handwriting and to see the horror of this fraction. Let's do this problem. The faster we get rid of the fraction, the better. Okay, the fraction's attached to x, but all of that is attached to that 6, so I'm going to move that 6 to the other side. All right, so we have negative 21 equals negative 3/5 x. Don't forget the minus that's in front of the 3/5. Common mistake that we see. All right, in order to make that evil fraction go away, we're going to use another fraction. We're going to use its reciprocal, which means we're going to multiply both sides by 5, the negative 5 over 3. On the right-hand side, it causes all of that to cancel. The 3's, the 5's, the negatives. Perfect. So all we're left with is x. On the left-hand side, if you're entering this into your calculator, make sure to write those parentheses in there so you get the correct answer of 35. Okay. Now, let's solve an inequality. Solving inequalities is very similar to solving equations. There is one special rule, and that is if you divide or multiply by a negative number, you must flip your symbol. Let's see how this one goes. So let's get x by itself by adding 6 to both sides first. So we have negative 3x is less than 75. To get x by itself now, I'm dividing by a negative 3, which means the sign flips. Negative 3, flipped sign. So, the correct answer is letter B. Okay. Number 8, we have another inequality, and we're going to just do those same steps as if it was an equation. The first thing that I'm going to do is subtract x from both sides. Like I mentioned, I prefer my variables to be positive, so I moved x to the left. Next, I'm moving the constant away from the x's and dividing by 2. So x is less than 3. There's our answer. Admission to the fair costs $5. Each ride costs us 50 cents. You have $15 to spend at the fair on rides and admission. Let's express the number of tickets we can buy as an inequality. Now, first thing we have to keep in mind that even though we started off with $15, we only have $10 for the rides. Okay, well, if we have $10 for the rides, and they cost 50 cents each, that means I can go on 20 rides. And that's if I spend that whole $10 bill. Well, let's say I don't want to spend the whole $10 bill. Let's say I don't want to go on any rides at all. I just want to go into that fair and hang out with my friends. Well, then I could spend $0 on tickets and get 0 tickets. So our answer is letter B. You could also eliminate that, or eliminate A, B, and C. Oh, A, C, and D. Whoopsie daisy. Just because B is the only one that has a 20 in it. Okay, so 20 rides is the most we can go. None of them have a 20. Okay, literal equations. These were a little funky, so bear with me. We have this equation, and we would like to find g by itself. What would g equal if it was all by itself? I'm going to rewrite it because I'd like to show you the steps in a more clear way, in a clearer way. Clearer. Okay, now g is attached to m and x, and all of that is attached to e. So the first thing that I'm going to do is subtract e from both sides. Now, I can't actually subtract e from w, so it's just w minus e. Okay, I'm still trying to get g by itself. G is attached to m and x through multiplication, so we need to divide both sides by m and x to get g by itself. Okay, so we should find an answer that looks like that. Letter D. Awesome. One last question for KC1. Let's do it. Here is another literal equation that holds our frenemy. I guess it depends how you see it. The fraction I love fractions personally, but I know a lot of y'all hate it. That's okay. You'll get all my love. I'm going to rewrite it once again, just so I have room to write. We're trying to get letter C by itself. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that fraction by using the method of reciprocals. 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2, so I really have 2a equals ch. And just a reminder, the fraction cancels. Okay. In order to get c by itself now, I have to undo the multiplication that it has with the letter h. So I divide both sides by the letter h. So c should equal 2a over h. That's option C. Was there an option D? Oh yes, there was. Whoops. Well, one way or another, here we are, done with KC1. If you have any questions about the work that's been performed, feel free to ask your teachers about this, your supervisory teachers, or myself, Ms. Guman, about this problem.